Welcome to our first committee on economic development and technology. Today's date is Wednesday, January 29th, and the time is 10 a.m., and we're at conference room 423. So to start off, I want to share some guidelines for the committee. Doesn't look like we have many testifiers in the room at this point. So there won't be a time limit on testimony, but because the morning hearing must adjourn prior to the noon floor session, not all testifiers may have the opportunity to testify if we go long. In that event, please know that your written testimony will be considered by the committee. For those in Zoom, please keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify, and after your testimony is complete, the Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with technical staff only. Please use the chat only for technical issues. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. In the event of a network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision-making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. Please avoid using any trademark or copyrighted items. And for everyone here, as well as in Zoom, please refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from the hearing without the ability to rejoin. So be civil, everyone. Starting off, we're going to hear testimony from HB 22. And at this moment, we'll start off with Sonny Ganadin, if he's here in person. Doesn't look like he is. He's not in Zoom. He's in support. We also have others in support, but let's bring in Sandy Ma from Legal Clinic in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for the Legal Clinic. First, some pleasantries. Happy Lunar New Year. 新年快乐，恭喜发财. So the Legal Clinic is testifying in support of HB 22. We have two minor amendments, suggested amendments to this bill. HB 22 does provide that the state or local law enforcement agency may detain an individual for up to 48 hours with only a civil immigration detainer if a person has been convicted of a felony within 5 years, and also if there's probable cause to believe that an individual has engaged in terrorist activity. We respectfully request that the probable cause provision be stricken. And we also ask, this is our second proposed amendment, that an enforcement provision be added to this bill. Thank you very much for hearing HB 22, and we ask that this bill be moved out of committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonny Ganadin in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Sonny Ganadin, Deputy Public Defender. In support, we only ask that the bill be amended to not abrogate the state constitution and delete section B2. If an individual is, of course, charged with a felony within 5 years, there would be no need to take away the necessity for a warrant. Also, the idea of not having probable cause for terrorism is kind of silly. Usually something like that will be charged by the federal government or will be associated with some sort of major felony. So there's no need to abrogate the state constitution by, again, taking out the warrant requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Liza. Thank you. We have Amy Agbiani in support. Thank you. Noreen Cole in Zoom. Not present. We have Nathan Lee.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, ACLU of Hawaii. My name is Nathan Lee. We just want to emphasize two things from our written testimony. The first is just re-emphasizing that there are due process rights that are guaranteed to all residents of the United States, regardless of their citizenship status. And you can find extensive footnotes on that in the written testimony. And the second is that if Hawaii were to institute HB 22, it would be well within its rights. As Attorney General Lopez stated, the 10th Amendment prevents the federal government from commandeering the state to force it to institute its immigration policy. And so we just want to emphasize that HB 22 would be a valid exercise of Hawaii's constitutional rights and also allow it to protect the constitutional rights of its residents regardless of citizenship status. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, from ACLU of Hawaii. Moving on to Jamie Detweiler in Zoom. Thank you. We also have, doesn't look like Sergio is here. Moving on to Karen Mountain, Ogla Verlez. In support?
In support, yes. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm here to express my support for House Bill 22. As an immigrant in the United States for over 30 years and who has called Hawaii home for the last 10 years, I appreciate the opportunity to share my opinion on this legislation that aims to balance helping the immigration enforcement while protecting local resources and maintaining community trust. Like any other state in our country, Hawaii represents a melting pot of numerous diverse cultures and traditions brought by immigrants from different parts of the world. The principles of aloha and ohana remind us that diversity is a source of strength and a fundamental part of what makes our island unique. HB 22 represents the ideals by addressing a meeting point of state and federal immigration responsibilities while focusing on the well-being and rights of all people regardless of their immigration status. My support for HB 22 stems from my personal understanding of the challenges immigrants face in Hawaii. As an immigrant myself, at a point in my life, I had to face barriers such as language access, fear of discrimination, lack of understanding about my rights. While collaboration with the federal government may simplify processes and improve services, it is critical that such initiatives do not harm or marginalize. I'm extremely concerned about the negative consequences of this legislation, that if this legislation, is not implemented carefully with the proper measures to protect immigrant communities. Collaboration with federal agencies should not result in increased surveillance, fear, or unjustified enforcement actions against law-abiding residents. Immigrants make significant contributions to Hawaii's economy, culture, and social structure, and policies that jeopardize their security and trust might have profound consequences in the entire state. HB 22 provides an opportunity to demonstrate that Hawaii's approach to immigration is grounded in respect, fairness, and humanity. To that end, I respectfully urge lawmakers to guarantee that the bill includes measures to protect immigrants' privacy and avoid misusing the information shared with government authorities. Prioritize transparency and provide tools and support services to help immigrants understand their rights and obtain the appropriate assistance. I have experienced the challenges and opportunities of building a life in the United States of America, which during the past 10 years has been in this breathtaking state. The recent images of immigrants on the continent being deported back to their countries are causing fear and worry in our state's immigrants' population. HB 22 has the potential to set a positive example of how states can work with the federal government while safeguarding the rights and dignity of all residents. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my testimony on this. Thank you.
Thank you. We currently have 91 testimonies in support and 52 testimonies in opposition. Is there others who wish to testify that's in the room? All right, with no further testimonies, also in Zoom, With no further testimonies in the room as well in Zoom, members, do we have any question? Oh. All right, moving on. With no further testimony in the room, members, do you have any questions? All right, with no questions, let's move on to HB 73 for first testifier. Sunny Ganadin, Office of the Public Defender, in
Good
support.
morning again. Sonny Gannon, Deputy Public Defender. The Office of the Public Defender, of course, supports this bill. Many of you have visited the Honolulu internment camp, which is here on this island. And for 3 years, Japanese American citizens, approximately 320 of them, were at that time legally held here in an internment camp. That was prior to the creation of the state and prior to the creation of the Office of the Public Defender. A clear abrogation of what we would now consider human rights and civil rights. We note that the federal government is in possession of significant portions of land throughout the Hawaiian archipelago. I'm not sure if the chair has considered this, but maybe turn this into a resolution directed to the executive branch and the DLNR should this not pass.
All right, moving on to our next testifier, Liza Ryan Gill, in support, Hawaii Coalition for Immigrants' Rights.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Liza Ryan Gale with the Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights. We stand in strong support of this bill. The feds already are in possession, have leases to lots of land in Hawaii. I don't think we need to give them additional land from the state or county if they were to set up some type of detention facility. On a note, we are also trying to find clarity on how many beds they already have at the federal detention center and if those are occupied. You know, seeing as our jails already in this state are at capacity, I think it's imperative that we make sure if the federal government is doing an enforcement action based on civil immigration law, that they are responsible for providing the housing within their own federal detention system and not occupying spaces that need to be used here for county and state civil or criminal arrests. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to our next testifier, is there a Noreen Cole in Zoom? She's in support. In person, we have Amy Agbayani.
I stand on my written testimony, Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights.
Thank you. In support. Moving on to our next testifier, Kyra Shells, in support.
Aloha mai kako, o Kyra Shells Val. Hello, everybody. I am Kyra. I am a resident of Kaneohe. I'm here to express strong support for House Bill 73, which prohibits the use of setting aside public lands for establishment of any immigration detention facility. I support this bill because I believe that public lands should be used to serve the needs of Hawaiian and local communities, not for facilities that are often known for poor conditions, overcrowded living spaces, unsanitary environments, and lack of medical care. By preventing such facilities from being built on public land, we can ensure that Hawaii should not contribute to the system that is harm to vulnerable individuals. Hawaii is facing critical challenges that need our attention, such as ongoing housing crisis and food insecurity. Many people are struggling to find affordable housing, and the cost of food and is rising due to the fact that most of our food is important from the continent, and that's 85 to 90%. The reliance on food shipped from outside sources leaves us vulnerable to disruptions. Should we face interruptions due to weather events or shipping delays, Hawaii could experience food shortages, putting residents at higher risk of hunger and causing food prices to skyrocket. Additionally, unused land in Hawaii could be utilized for local food production and affordable housing. By doing so, we could reduce the state dependency on important food and increase food security, making our communities more resilient to disruptions. So public land may be used for the benefit and the well-being and development of the community rather than to harm and imprison individuals. I strongly urge that you pass House Bill 73 and protect Hawaii's public lands from becoming sites for immigration detention centers. By supporting this bill, you are standing for the rights and well-being of vulnerable individuals while protecting Hawaiian and local communities. And thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Moving on to our next testifier, we have, well, we'll find out if we have any others, but we have 85 testimony in support for HB 73, and in opposition, we have 40 testimony in opposition. Is there any other testifiers in the room who wish to testify? What about in Zoom? Sandy Ma?
Sorry, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, I submitted testimony from the legal committee. I'll just stand on my written support. I don't have anything to add more to what the
Thank you.
testifiers in person did.
Thank you. Any others? All right. Members, do you have any questions? Let's move on to our next bill. We have HB 438 and Sunny Ganadin from the Office of Public Defender in support.
Good morning again. The Office of the Public Defender supports this bill. Ordinarily, public defenders are not assigned to cases before the federal court, of course, or for civil cases. So this is usually outside of the purview of our office. We felt it important to testify in this matter because though it's an extraordinary bill, might be extraordinary times. Costs for this immigration proceeding program can be minimalized, significantly utilizing existing legal service providers, some of whom are present here in the room. And of course, the Office of Public Defender will work with the judiciary in its implementation of the program. One other thing to note, I'm not sure if anywhere in the state has a sort of best practices for state places. Should the federal government come to, say, a school or a hospital intending to do a raid similar to the way they are doing now in Chicago, Illinois, they have sort of a best practices program and a protocol which they enacted just yesterday. So that might be a note for the next committee.
Thank you. Moving to our next testifier, is there a Danico Ramos in Zoom?
Yeah, present. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for having me testify. You have a written testimony in support of this bill. I'm speaking on behalf of the University of Hawaii's Law School Refugee and Immigration Clinic. So we provide pro bono services for asylum seekers and those going through removal proceedings and other humanitarian relief efforts. And law students work with us and they get credit working with us on real cases as a requirement for graduation. We support this bill, and we do definitely see, based on our work, a greater need for these services with this new administration. The only thing that we want to emphasize in our testimony is that we do have a suggested amendment where we would require and ask the Judiciary Committee, the judiciary, to partner with the law school in developing education and training programs for law students and also attorneys who want to work on these cases pro bono. We believe that while it's important to build the capacity at this moment to serve this population, we also find it that it's equally important to sustain it and develop the pipeline for more lawyers to be interested in this field and to work with this community. So thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Mahalo.
Thank you, Danico, for your testimony, and I apologize for the AI interrupting you. Moving on to Liza Gill in support.
Yes. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Liza Ryan Gill with Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights. We stand in strong support of this bill, just as a reminder, and we also support the University of Hawaii's amendments and the need to build this pipeline. Hawaii is still considered a legal desert on immigration civil matters, and there are whole counties where we have very, very few and no pro bono attorneys to serve folks that are in need that may have a lawful pathway to adjust their status. And if we can remember going back to the first Trump administration when we also those horrible pictures and stories about kids as young as 6 and 7 standing in an immigration court alone, facing an ICE judge and an ICE prosecutor on their own. That is a miscarriage of justice. There's no way that child can present their case, much less in a language they don't understand with no legal knowledge. And so I think it is imperative as we think about upholding our values of justice and due process in the state, that we make sure that folks have access to that. When there are oftentimes in immigration court, when you do not have somebody representing you, it is very, very difficult to have a positive outcome in your case, even if you have a solid case. We have seen in other immigration courts that we can increase that the number of folks that have a positive outcome of their case increases exponentially, as one might imagine, when you have a lawyer present who can actually argue your case. So I think this, again, comes back to our values as a state and whether or not we believe that everybody has a chance to go through a hearing and have due process.
Thank you. We have the legal clinic, Sandy Ma, in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for the Legal Clinic in support of HB 438. Just a little reminder, immigration proceedings are civil actions, and the Constitution applies to everyone in the country and doesn't ask whether you have papers or not in the proper papers. And so with this said, while the Constitution applies to everyone, like I said, immigration proceedings are civil, so you are not entitled to an attorney when appearing before immigration court. And so, but the consequences of appearing before immigration court are severe. You could be separated from your family. You can be removed from this country. And so this is why we are asking for this committee to move this bill out of your committee. This is why it's so important that there be funding for representation for someone appearing before immigration court, because the consequences are just as severe as someone proceeding through a criminal justice system. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to our next testifier, the Hawaii's Children Action Network speaks, Noreen Cole. Not present in Zoom. The ACLU of Hawaii, Nathan Lee, in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Just to echo what's already been said, I want to emphasize some of the numbers that have been mentioned. So there was a national study on immigration and the provision of counsel, and it found that those with representation were 4 times more likely to be released from detention than those without when they had a custody hearing, and 11 times more likely to apply for relief from deportation, something like asylum. And then if you look at the success in those cases, people with legal representation were twice as likely to obtain asylum relief or other kinds of deportation relief if they had legal representation. And so I think when we talk about access to justice and just outcomes, it's really important to remember that many of these people do have a legal right to be here. They just need the help to prove that to the courts. And as has been mentioned, it's incredibly difficult to do so alone. So ACLU of Hawaii is in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our next testifier, Sergio is not present. He's in support. And we have we have 83 support testimony for HB 438 and 51 in opposition and 1 comment. Is there any others who wish to testify? Amy Agbiani? In support?
In support, Hawaii Friends for Civil Rights in support. I just wanted to add a few background information as context. Over 18% of Hawaii's population is foreign-born. That's about over 260,000 people. That means 1 in 5 residents are foreign-born immigrants. And they reside in all counties. Oahu is 75%, Maui is 12%, Hawaii Island is 7%, and Kauai is 5%. And immigrants from the Philippines represent the largest country of origin group, making up nearly half, or 45.8%, of all immigrants in Hawaii. However, more recent immigrant groups are coming from Mexico, Vietnam, and Micronesia, and they make up a sizable share. Also, we have information that the largest percentage of ICE arrests are actually Chinese and Micronesians. And so all of us really require support for these people, many of whom are limited English proficient. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any others who wish to testify? With no testimony in person and none in Zoom, we will ask for testimonies from committee members. Any comments or questions? All right, moving on to our next item, HB 457. We have Liza Gill in support, Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights. Thank you.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Liza Gill, Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights. We stand in strong support of HB 457. Many of us, anybody who's watched like a cop drama, have seen somebody be Mirandized, right? You have the right to remain silent, you have the right to have an attorney or one provided to you. These same rights exist for everyone in the United States under our Constitution. When folks are detained and in custody, and if ICE has a judicial warrant and wants to come see them, what we're asking for this is this what we think of as Miranda rights to be made clear to those individuals, especially in a language that they understand. So again, you're not able to exercise your rights if you don't understand what folks are saying, and so we would respectfully request, and we're having conversations also with our local law enforcement, and they seem amenable to this provision to say, great, we can make sure that people understand that they have the right to remain silent. They also have the right to refuse an interview. Again, justice is not justice if you don't understand what is happening to you and can consent. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to our next testifier, the Legal Clinic, Sandy Ma, in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for the Legal Clinic, testifying in support of HB 457. We are testifying, like I said, in support, but with one suggested amendment. Several immigration advocates were speaking with the Honolulu Police Chief and his staff yesterday about this bill regarding giving warnings to those in custody when ICE is interested in interviewing them or have a detainer request out for them. And the Honolulu police chief had a very interesting comment. It said that if a warning is provided to people, and our bill says that it's provided in writing, our bill here, HB 457, people may not be able to read, even though it's provided in language. And so our proposed amendment is to have it orally provided. They could do recordings in language and just play the recording to the person in the language that they are able to understand. So that is our proposed amendment for this bill, and the Honolulu police chief and the staff was amenable to that proposal. I know they're not here. We alerted them to this bill yesterday, but that was something they brought up and suggested that it could be a recorded Miranda-type warning alert to people in custody. Thank you. And we ask that this bill be moved out of your committee, available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks, Noreen Cole in Zoom. One day she'll be here. We have Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights, Amy Agbiani in support. Thank you. We have Maui Roots Reborn, Veronica Mendoza in support in Zoom. Okay. We have Hawaii Workers Center, Sergio, currently still not here. And we have 81 testimony in support for HB 457 and 48 testimony in opposition with one comments. Is there any others who wish to testify? We have Sonny Ganadin from the Office of Public Defender in support.
Good morning again, Chair. I'm not sure if the office filed this one. We are in support of this measure in addition to the amendments suggested by other testifiers. We'd like to note Hawaii Revised Statutes 802E2, which might be a note for the next committee. The judiciary already does a form of this carefully crafted due process concern. So they do this in all district courts and circuit courts throughout the state to inform individuals that when they plead guilty or no contest, that that guilty plea could impact their immigration rights. So we just ask that as this bill moves forward, it references the current statute.
Thank you. All right, is there any others who wish to testify? With no others in person and none in Zoom, we will move on to our last bill, which is HB 476. Let's start off with Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Tom, are you in Zoom? With comments? Oh, it's not in person. I mean, no, it's not in Zoom. And is there any others in the room who wish to testify? Oh, go ahead. And who, please state your name. Yes, please.
My name is Devin Thomas, speaking on behalf of Hawaii Appleseed. I would like to testify in support of HB 476 to raise the capital gains rate. I think ideally we would want to tax capital gains at the same rate as ordinary income, because right now the loophole allows for wealthy folks, and by wealthy I mean the wealthiest in the state, people earning over $400,000 a year, they can get a tax break because they pay the flat 7.25%, and they should be paying the ordinary rate that they would pay for their income tax bracket. It's only reasonable, and that's why we support raising the rate and then down the line even taxing it as the same rate as someone's ordinary income tax rate. And to provide context as well, long-term capital gains in this state are overwhelmingly earned by the wealthiest of the wealthy. So 80% of the capital gains go to people earning over $400,000. So we're not talking about low or even a lot of middle-income people. They can't afford to buy stocks, bonds, other assets. This is, squarely benefiting the people at the top who are getting an undeserved income tax break. And we're just trying to create more tax fairness in this state, and we hope that the committee agrees with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin. Is there any others who wish to testify?
Chair,
Proceed.
on behalf of the Department of Taxation, I'm Garrison.
Garrison?
We just stand on our testimony, which I believe you should have, just providing comments on administration of the bill, but I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Garrison.
Thank you.
All right, is there any others who wish to testify? Is there any in Zoom? Members? Are there any questions? Representative Todd?
Thanks. Maybe for DOTAX, if possible. So the testifier from Appleseed referenced that 80% of capital gains income interstate is paid by those who are making $400,000 or more. Do you have any insight as to whether that $400,000 figure is impacted by the sale of a home, and whether it's long-term, like sustained income?
I would have to go back and do the research and ask. I don't know off the top of my head today.
Okay, that would be helpful, just because I know that sometimes that can just have a temporary spike, so
Yeah.
it may be impacting that data. But
Okay.
I don't have any background, so thanks.
Thank you.
Stay here for a moment, Grayson. Is there any others? I have a question for you. With the increase, do you know how much of the revenue would come to the state?
I don't yet. I know that Research and Planning is working on all the bills that came out, so I can go back and let them know you've asked and see where we're at and get back to you with it, but I don't have numbers for it yet.
No estimate at all?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, members, is there any other further questions? Go ahead.
I wonder if Appleseed, if you have an estimate of the anticipated increase in revenue.
We don't, unfortunately, either. We only do for taxing it at the same rate as ordinary income.
All right, members, with no further questions, we will recess for DM. Recess. We are back from recess, and we are going to continue on to decision-making. At this time, we are going to go to the top of the agenda with HB 22.
Okay, voting on HB.
Hold on, Vice Chair. No worries. It's all right.
Everyone's excited.
Yeah, let's go. Let's make it happen.
That was my cue.
It's all good. It's all good. I just wanted to take a moment to really appreciate everybody for testifying, and I know we have differing views on this issue, and we want to do our best to move it forward and take everybody's consideration. At this time, the chair's recommendation is going to be HD1, and we're going to make an amendment from the legal clinic. Actually, I was reading through the legal clinic, and there's some things that I wanted to point out, but it's already in the bill, so we don't have to make that amendment. So I guess we'll just stay with the as is. And what I was going to add into, but it's already in the bill, is the counties may provide for stronger standards and protections. Because as you know, as a state, we like to keep a standard, but if the county wish to make stronger protections there, they can. And that's already in the bill, and that's one of the amendment that the legal clinic had in their testimony. But because it's in the bill, we're going to keep it as is. So at this time, the chair's recommendation is to pass HB 22 as is. Vice Chair? Actually, before that, is there any questions from the committee? Vice Chair, could you take the vote?
Sure. Okay, voting on HB 22, chair's recommendation is to pass as is.
Yes.
Okay. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Holt.
Aye.
Representative Tam.
Aye.
Representative Templo.
Aye.
Representative Todd.
Aye.
And Representative Matsumoto.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 73. We also don't have any amendments on this bill, and the chair's recommendation is going to be as is. Members, are there any questions? Chair, Vice Chair, could you please take the vote?
Voting on HB 73, chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Let's see. Are there any nays, any noes? Any WR? Okay. Everyone else votes yes. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 438. With this bill, we are going to do an HD1. And there are several amendments, so bear with me. The chair's amendment is to add in from the judiciary to change the funding distribution process to a request for proposal process. I also want to add in an amendment from the Refugee and Immigration Law Clinic. I want to add the reference with partnership with immigration law students in powers and duties. I also want to add into the committee notes the appropriation of $750,000. I also want to make sure that the bill has a blank appropriation, but within the committee notes is the amount that we're aiming for. And last, any technical amendments needed for clarity and consistency in style. Members, are there any questions? With no questions, Vice Chair, could you please take the vote?
Okay, we're voting on HB 438. The chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments in HD1. Are there any members voting no? Are there any members voting with reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 457. This measure, there are several amendments as well, and I'm the chair's recommendation is going to be a HD1. I would like to amend page 3, lines 7-10, to add that other accommodations will be made for individuals who do speak those languages. Amend page 4, line 6-16, to include the requirement that any personally identifiable information be redacted. Under subsection 1 in page 4, to add, except if there is a likelihood that the individual in question would be actually identified by the disclosure of such demographic information, then only the number of individuals be reported. On page 4, line 7, the line shall read, customs enforcement access to a detained individual provided by a law enforcement agency. And last, any technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Is there any questions on the HD1? All right, members, Vice Chair, could you please take the vote?
We're voting on HB 457. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Are there any members voting no? Any members voting with reservation? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you so much. We are on the last bill, and we're on HB 476. At this time, we will do an HD1, and we are going to defect the date to July 1st, 3000. I also want to add into the committee notes that I have data from DOTAX in 2021's hearing that this increase, this specific amount, would be 53.7 million in fiscal year 25, and in fiscal year 26, it'd be 55.5 million, and in fiscal year 27, it'd be 57 million. That is old data, but at least we have a reference of how much in the committee notes this increase would bring in. We definitely need to update that data for what it is now. Is there any questions, members? Representative Matsumoto?
Thank you, Chair. Just at the time, I wanted, based off of Maui Chambers of Commerce's testimony in opposition, I'll be voting with reservations. They make really interesting points based off of the Lahaina wildfires, and so if you could note my reservations.
Thank you. With no further questions, Vice Chair, could you please take the vote?
Voting on HB 476. The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. We have a reservation, from Representative Matsumoto. Are there any other no votes? Any other votes with reservation? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you, members, for your work. This committee is now adjourned.